All right, good evening. This is Tuesday, November 8th, Election Day. This is the regular meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 25th, 2016 regular meeting?
So moved. Second.
Okay, there was a change to the minutes?
Yeah, Marianne, you got that on the change I sent you earlier, page 3?
The only thing is at the meeting, it was November 2nd, I think it changed after the fact.
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
So just excise that line out of the minutes then?
Do you want me to take it out?
Well, that's one way to deal with it.
Yeah, you can take it out.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor of the amended minutes? That's unanimous, that motion passes. We have an opportunity for public comment. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment at this time?
Hi, Kyla Hart. I have an 8th grader and a 5th grader. I've been hearing murmurings around. I don't know if there's anything, if it's real or not, but I've heard it over the last couple of years about how all field trips are going to be phased out. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but I wanted to, since I've heard it across a period of time, from other parents, from PTSO members, from teachers, just wanted to put it out there and say that if indeed it is something that administration is discussing, I would hope that it would be as transparent as the time change was last year. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just for the record, administration is not discussing that. I'd say that goes into the rumor pile. Again, in the interest of transparency, we did cut back field trips several years ago. We've since reinstated that money, and there's been no current discussion about field trips one way or the other since a few years ago, so.
It's great you came and said that, because I mean, it's a surprise to me to hear this. My colleagues too. So it's good to get those from the left.
Yes.
I should say, my daughter is going with a whole bunch of people to Storm King tomorrow, so definitely some field trips.
That is a field trip.
All right, move on to board committee reports. Communications committee.
And that's me. I've met twice since our last meeting, but actually I think it's relatively easy to start with the one that's moved to the packet. That was the later one, the earlier one. Yeah, so we've been talking about the referendum on the capital project. At the first meeting on October 27th, we talked about how to take the prioritized list of the capital project items and put them into categories. I think Kristen from Tetra Tech had originally taken a pass at that. We talked about that. We talked about how to do outreach to the community, walkthroughs of the building, a newsletter, public meeting, letters to the editor perhaps, and posting some Rhinebeck Community Forum email blasts obviously, and develop a to-be-done list, and fact sheet. This is all stuff that you all know we moved along on, so no point going through it extensively. And then more recently we met last week, or yesterday. Yesterday. And so we reviewed the newsletter and the FAQs that go along with it. A few of the FAQs will go in the newsletter, but then there'll be there'll be information on the newsletter to go to the website for the rest of the FAQs. All of that will also be on the website, probably perhaps by the end of this week on the website.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Laura did a fantastic job in the newsletter, laying it out and writing the content. And then it really was, though, a team effort of working on the editing, so it was fantastic. It's not always easy to write with a lot of people, but that really worked. And so there's going to be, people would be interested in, there's a special link. You have someone has a copy?
You all do at your places,
okay.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's not just Rhinebeck, CSD.org. It's capitalproject.rhinebeckcsd.org. Obviously, people can go to the website and they'll get connected to that. But, and on that will also be the greater detail of what more than just the executive summary of the project, proposed project. There's also going to be a calculator on that link, which is in the newsletter, to calculate your tax impact for your own home. It's good, everyone has a list, so you can also see the save the dates and back, the various outreach activities. And so the goal is for the newsletter to go to the printer ASAP, like in the next.
We've already sent an earlier draft to the printer just so they could start to eyeball it and let us know whether there are any issues or concerns from their end. My secretary, who is kind of shepherding that through the process, talked with the lady from the Kingston Post Office regarding mailing. She decided today that it was getting a little more complicated than she recalled. The budget newsletter, maybe because we haven't done, like a one-sheet newsletter, so there are issues with weight and size. So she's actually going to go over there tomorrow morning around 11 and get the final skinny on this. Whether we can mail it like this, whether we need to fold it twice like this. So as soon as the printer tells us he's ready to go and sends us a proof, and we get the information from the post office so we can let the printer know you have to fold it once or twice, all those details, we're ready to go. We'll do it in the same style as our budget newsletters. It'll be like in a purplish print on white paper, so we'll maintain that continuity from publication to publication, and we hope to send it out, obviously as quickly as we get it back from the printers, but we're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping we can send it out sometime midweek next week, so people will get it towards the end of the week or the weekend before the Thanksgiving weekend and break, and also try to get out in front of the save the dates, the first one of which is, I think, Saturday the 14th. Yeah, you got it right there.
19th.
Oh, yeah, it's coffee with the board, then Saturday the 19th, I'm sorry, for one of the walkthroughs, then the 21st for the second walkthrough. Then we plan to have Garrett Hamlin here on Tuesday, November 22nd, which is the night of our second November board meeting, to do a presentation to anyone who might be interested at 7 p.m. And then we'll start our regular meeting after that concludes. There are no requirements, unlike the budget process, to have a public hearing or within a certain number of days. It's pretty much wide open, but we thought offering up a couple of opportunities to walk through and at least one formal presentation to members of the public who are interested, a couple of weeks before the actual vote would be a good thing to do. So
do you think, because now you're saying like midweek next week, do you think, because originally I thought because we really would be great to get people to have it at least Wednesday so that they could have the Thursday date, which of course is typically we do outreach to parents.
Yeah.
So we do the email blast on that anyway.
we will be doing that anyway. So I don't think that's going to be a setback. I mean, we're moving that along as quickly as we can. I mean, if by some amazing twist of fate they had them back to us from the printers on Monday. I mean, we'll send them out as soon as we get them back. We're pushing the envelope a little bit, but I think we'll be okay, especially on the coffee with the board, because we typically don't advertise that outside of the school community. Not that it would be a problem if other people came, but again, without a local newspaper, it's hard to get word out in ways other than with an email blast. Unfortunately, we're actually more handicapped in this day of ubiquitous digital communication. We don't have the old-fashioned communication of a local newspaper that would hit a lot of people who aren't part of the digital communication loop, but, it is what it
So you also
is.
said that you would do the save dates, send it to Rhinebeck Community Forum, right? Because it kind of
Yeah.
just will look bad to the members of the community who are not
Mhm.
parents, and they get this Friday,
Yeah.
and then one of the dates is already passed, which they don't know
Yeah.
about anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
like they're thinking, oh, that's usually for parents. They're
Yeah.
just like, oh, we got the newsletter late, so.
Yep, it's actually drafted and sitting on the back end of our website, and as soon as I'm able to polish that up and go live on the website with it, I'll just cut it and paste it and send it to Rhinebeck Community Forum, so,
So also for purposes of the website, because this is laid out this way, I can do single pages, so folks can scroll down rather than jumping back
That'd
and
be great.
forth. So it's just easier to read
Mhm.
online.
Yep,
So
excellent.
one of the sliders on the website will be dedicated to the capital project.
That's correct. Yeah, again, Steve has that all mocked up. We're waiting to get some of the final copy as well as to get the tax impact calculator.
He's got it.
So, I mean, that's
He's got to make it work.
that's
on
what we've
his
been working
website.
on over the
That's
last
up to
couple
him.
of
I don't know
days,
how to
so
do that.
I hate to promise it, but my sense is we should be able to go live with that before school closes on Thursday afternoon. That's my goal, so.
So really, just to finish the minutes here with that, it was a lot of work that's been done in a short time to do these efforts to inform the community. I don't know if anyone has any comments about that or additional things we can do. At the end of the meeting, we had a brief discussion about feedback that some board members received at the breakfast with the board on Friday with the staff. Hearing from the chancellor staff that buses at the end of the day are routinely late, and that the children are leaving school late. This was news to Joe and to Tom. We're not aware of any regular problems, and as well, we haven't heard complaints from parents that kids are getting dropped off late. So we reported that to our administrators, and they'll take a look at it.
Yeah, well, Todd, just to try to close that loop, Tom and I met with Principal King this afternoon, and if by talking about late, we're talking about an occasional 1 or 2 minutes late for a bus or two, that's about the most that's happening. I mean, it sounded much more dramatic when you guys reported back to us after the Friday thing. I can go into more detail at another time, but we did meet with that and meet with Brett about that, and I think it's not quite as serious or dramatic as was communicated to the two of us, but
Look
Was
forward to
that,
hearing more.
was that maybe because with the sports seasons, fall season's coming to an end, more people riding the bus? Was there maybe a
no. Well,
change in the middle?
In part, it's because we've had a substitute driver on one of the runs that has to make it out to Clinton and back, so they're not getting back here with as much extra time as we'd like them to in a perfect world, but we know it's not a perfect world. And we've even had some discussions about looking into moving some kids around on those buses to get them back here a little more quickly, but we've held off on doing that because everything else has been working relatively smoothly, that we decided that's not an apple cart we necessarily want to upset at this stage of the game. I mean, it's not like buses are leaving 5 or 10 or 15 minutes late. I mean, we're talking about a few occasionally leaving at 3:36 or 3:37 instead of 3:35. But as reported to us, most every day the vast majority of buses are leaving by 3:35, so it's not surprising we're not getting calls from concerned parents, because the buses aren't getting home particularly late. I mean, it's hard to measure 1 minute late as late and parents being up in arms because, and we know there's got to be some flexibility in when they get home in the afternoon anyway, because it's not always the same number of kids who ride in the afternoon. Sometimes there are high school and middle school kids on there from the shuttle. That may make it arrive a few minutes late. I mean, getting picked up in the morning, you should be able to set your watch by that. Going home in the afternoon, so variable in sports season, out of sports season when kids are or aren't riding the bus. I think, are the buses leaving at 2:25 like they may have
Last year.
when we were on the old schedule? No, they're not leaving at 2:25. But the end of the teacher day is 3:35, and that's when they're committed to being here, and that's if we get the buses out by then, we're on time as far as I'm concerned.
Maybe at our upcoming school start meeting, we could sort of flesh out that lead-up time before 3:30.
Yeah, sure, we definitely can. I'm not being totally dismissive of it, I just think that it's not nearly, and, we also had a discussion about the procedure for getting kids from their classroom to the bus, and there have been discussions about, well, you can't, if you don't want to be standing out in the hallway with your kids for 10 minutes, then don't bring your kids out of your classroom 10 minutes early. I think at least part of it is an adjustment to a new schedule, and some have adjusted more easily to that than others, and I'll just leave it that way.
Okay, thank you.
I would just suggest, just because we heard it as board members, just I'm sure that conversation happened, but just to say it out loud, that the teachers or teachers' aides who are concerned about that there be a conversation, because it's definitely communicated to us as a very major concern. So it'd be nice if the communication flowed all the way back that way as well. So that was the communication. Did anyone have any questions?
Thank you for all the
No questions, but I would like to really thank the Communications Committee for all your hard work getting the newsletter together and, trying to corral all this information that needs to go out to the public for the referendum vote.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'd also like to give a shout out to Lisa, who actually wrote the FAQs. I really appreciate it, and you did it overnight. I really appreciate that.
Nice ghostwriting job.
Not anymore.
Well, you've been outed. And I just would want to say, sorry, Mark, that if you get questions from members of the community that you think are important enough to add to that FAQ, let us know. I mean, we can't do anything with what's in the newsletter, obviously, and all the FAQs you couldn't fit in the newsletter anyway, but we can add them to the website FAQ list at will. So, I had mentioned to you a question that had come up at the PTSO meeting last night in an email that I sent to you today, and that's something, in my opinion, that probably should be on that list of FAQs. So pass them along. You may hear things we don't hear, so send them our way.
Can I just say that also that even if the referendum passes, and then we finish this project, those FAQs should probably still stay on the website and be added to people if they still have questions. There's no reason to take it down.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a question of operations. So if new questions come up, do we just send you the questions and then will you draft the response, or how do you want to work that?
Let's start by sending me the questions, and then we'll figure out how we're going to answer the questions. I may suggest that we do that as a collaborative effort as well, but let's start with the question. The answer may be very simple and straightforward and might not take much in terms of wordsmithing. It might be a little trickier than just a cut and dry, here's how this works. So I think we can play that by ear. But
Okay.
we'll start with the questions.
All right, anything else for communications? Are there any other committee reports?
No, I don't think so.
All right, move on to discussion on the 2016 NISBA conference.
Well, I put in your packets a copy of all of the sessions that were there, and I put it there for two reasons, but primarily, if there are any of the topics there that catch your eye, those of us who went to the event are able to I'm not sure exactly how we do it for everybody, but because I haven't had the time to research how that might happen. If there's something here that catches your eye, they have the handouts, if any, from each of these sessions that are available. So if you want to see the handouts on this particular session, send it along to me, and I'll go on and I'll pull it off the website if there are handouts. Not every session has handouts necessarily, but if there are, I'd be glad to print them up and send them along to you if you have a particular interest in a topic, because there were 4 of us, and there's no, as you can see, there's no way we could have covered all of the possible choices each session over the course of 2 days. We were pretty busy going to the sessions that we went to, but there's a lot that by necessity we had to miss. So if you see something that's of interest, let me know, and then I'll download. They have the stuff up on the website. I think it's all August. I mean, for some pretty long length, significant length of time. So let us know if there's anything that piques your interest.
All right, for those that went to the convention, any thoughts on the convention you'd like to share? Lisa?
I mean, I thought that it was very high quality series of presentations. The ones that I went to anyway were all very informative. The handout materials I thought were good in general. The presenters are always a mixed bag, and some of them are more enthralling to sit and listen to, depending on the time of the day you want to do. But overall, I thought it was very impressive. I thought the opening speakers were very good, despite most of that. A good convention.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I agree, and I went to several sessions. I also did the voting on our board's behalf. And I forgot to bring my notes tonight, but I will mention the resolution on the floor for health insurance. That resolution was defeated. So we had some discussion about that one in particular. So there was quite a bit of discussion on the floor about it being a local control issue. I think that was most of the sentiment of people who were opposed to the resolution. And so it was defeated. I could get into other ones, but I don't have my notes with me tonight.
Well, I recall the other one that we talked about was the one on opening up tenure every 4 years, and that one was also defeated.
Yes, it was.
And just as a reminder to the board members or to people who are watching this broadcast on YouTube, or for Steve, who's kind of new with this part of the process especially, these resolutions really have no force and effect of law or regulation. They're essentially a directive to the NISBA organization to lobby for these things. So, it's not like legislators are sitting up and taking notice as to what happens at that convention, but it's marching orders to the paid NISBA staff that, hey, these are things that our members want us to put on our platform and push. So, doesn't mean the idea is dead, it's just dead in the short term for the NISBA organization to lobby for those.
All right, anything else?
Just next year's conference is at Lake Placid,
Yes, it is.
so you're gonna have to act very quickly to secure yourself rooms in that, because there's not enough room for everybody up there. And the places that are nearby aren't nearby.
Yeah, you might get stuck in Plattsburgh.
Yeah, I'm talking.
I'm just kidding, but I'm not sure exactly why. What's that?
You can register already?
No.
I don't know, but you gotta be ready for it. We could probably get hotels early,
There's only one major hotel up there.
There's, it's
That's where I went for my board training.
trying to
Hard place to
find
have it, right?
places
It's
to
really
eat in the
nice.
evening is gonna be difficult. They're just,
That's
and it's
cheap
also
and fun.
still the leaf season up there at that time. Granted, it's towards the end of it, but people are still up there in that, in that fashion, so be ready next year to act real quickly and get everything in quick.
Convention is
Reserve,
earlier next year also, it's
Oh, it won't be
October
Mahal.
It's the
12th.
first weekend in October.
oh, so that's the peak of your leaf season.
That is the last hurrah up there.
It's October 12th.
Having lived there for a number of years, yeah.
What is it, what was the date?
12 to 14.
Yeah.
But we typically get notice sometime, maybe towards the end of the school year, very beginning of the summer. And Tom is right, especially when lodging is going to be at a premium. If we sit around and twiddle our thumbs for a couple weeks or a month or whatever, we will be way out of Lake Placid in terms of lodging. God only knows where, because there's not a lot up there. But so anyway, good word to the wise.
Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning.
All right, so we'll move on to good news. Is there any good news, Lisa?
I just want to acknowledge how terrific I thought this year's breakfast food report was. I'm really happy to see all of the teachers who came out, and some non-instruction staff as well. It was great. And everybody seemed very engaged. So it was nice to see that this event appears to be appreciated by the staff as well.
Other good news? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Is there any items of old business? Steve?
This kind of fits between old business and maybe public comment, since I've got multiple prongs here. I've talked about the need to have the curriculum committee talk about the BMS computer lab curriculum. And it's my understanding today, in talking with some members of the Rhinebeck Science Foundation board, that the flyer was shown again today. And the questions are, how does this fit into the new curriculum, and how far is that new curriculum really developed for 6th and 7th grade if the same things are still happening? So perhaps you can talk to Marvin and get an update on that at the next meeting.
Next week.
All right, other old business? All right, we have another opportunity for public comment. Okay. Move on to other.
Okay, I have another, and I didn't mention it under good news, but some might feel that it is. We got the results of the water testing at Chancellor, which we were required to do before the end of October. All school districts were required to test before the end of October, and to test in their secondary schools before the end of November. And of course, this short turnaround created an incredible backlog with every testing company in the state, I'm sure, and probably out of the state as well. So anyway, we got our results back today or late yesterday, and in Chancellor, out of 122 water sources in that building, there were 10 water sources that had lead levels higher than the New York State Department of Health cutoff. Okay, so I didn't mention that as good news because in a perfect world, you'd love there to be none. But the likelihood, especially in an older building like Chancellor and/or this building, it's pretty inevitable. Many school districts that I'm reading about have 35, 40, 45, 50% of their water sources have lead levels higher than what's required by the Department of Health. Moreover, of those 10 water sources at Chancellor, 8 of them were the hose bibs that are mostly outside the building, and they all have little keys to close them off, so they're not readily available to students, really only to the maintenance guys who have the magic key and for whenever they might want to or need to be watering something outside. Inside the school, there was one sink in one of the faculty bathrooms, a hand washing sink that had an elevated lead level, and one hand washing sink in one of the classrooms that also had an elevated lead level. So we're going to deal with those as we're required to do. But I just wanted to share that with you for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're required, I think within 10 days, or maybe it's even 30 days. There's a period of time within which we have to inform all the parents and the staff in a particular building. We will be sending.
That's 10 days.
We will be sending something out tomorrow morning, so we're not going to wait because we don't need to wait. So I thought I would mention it here before we provide that notice to our parents and our teachers. And again, I think the remediation on that will be fairly simple and inexpensive. The issue is not with the source water. The issue is with the plumbing fixtures and the age of the plumbing fixtures, because some people might ask you, well, I thought the water came from the Rhinebeck Water Department, and yeah, it's not what's coming out of the water department. It's what's going through the plumbing and is coming out. So in a kind of in a way, I looked at that as good news. I mean, I was dreading 40, 50, 60% of our fixtures needing remediation, and it's really, for practical purposes, it's 2, and the rest of them are hose bibs, which, there's no way. Maybe you used to drink out of the hose as a kid, but I mean, and we don't use it for drinking. We're not watering kids, and letting them drink from those hose bibs, during the warm weather or anything.
Nothing on field day or anything?
Not water, not drinking. They may use that. I'll check with Brett. They may use that for slip and slide or whatever, but it's what's ingested. I mean, nothing. You don't absorb anything through skin or other kind of contact. So anyway, I just want to let you know it'll be out in our community tomorrow when we, according to DOH requirements, inform our parents and our staff. And yes.
My recollection is that sometime earlier this year, the district tested water before the state mandated the testing, and that the results at that time came back with no lead contamination.
Yes, and yes, we did. And of course, at that time, we had no idea what the protocols were going to be for testing. You're allowed to run the water or supposed to run the water for X amount of time before you took the sample. I mean, it was a total wild card. There was word that there was going to be testing, and then all of a sudden, kind of at the last minute, at the end of August, bam, we got the regulations, and now we had the protocols. And obviously, even at the time we did the testing earlier in the summer, we didn't know whether we were going to be required to test every single water outlet in the building, which, as it turns out, is what they've required us to do. But we tested the water at the far ends of the buildings, figuring they would be most likely, if any of the water sources was going to have traces of lead in the water, they would be at the far ends of the building where the water had been sitting in the pipes the longest, et cetera, and that's not necessarily the case. Now that we've had to test everything, I've just explained to you what we're dealing with here. So it's not extensive, but we'll take care of it. Obviously, we're taking it seriously, and we're waiting on the results of the testing for this building, which is an older building, so we may expect more issues than we had at Chancellor, but we'll see. The good part was none of the water fountains had issues with lead. So even in the worst case, we're looking at a couple of sinks that are used for hand washing. I mean, technically, could somebody draw a cup of water from that and make a cup of tea or something? Yeah, so we're gonna fix that. And until then, there'll be signage up over those water outlets until Sheldon's guys are able to redo the plumbing or just turn it off and say, we're not gonna. For example, the one in the teacher's room, there are 2 sinks in the teacher's room. I don't know why there are 2 sinks in there to begin with. I mean, you probably have to go back about 30 years to figure out why they had 2 sinks in there, but it might be as easy as turning off the water to the one sink, use the other sink. It's a hand washing sink. I mean, I don't know. Again, no 2 people are going to be in that restroom washing their hands simultaneously, and in fact, that sink is hardly ever used.
That's probably
so. That's why
it's. Thought the reason why the lead was high, and it's not used.
This kind of makes sense if you don't use it, and that water's been sitting in the pipes for years. Then it's more likely to leach something into that water that you don't want there. The other thing was that the one hose bib that's in a storeroom.
Yeah.
Sheldon said it probably hasn't been used for 25 years. He didn't even know it was there until he went around doing the water testing. So you have water that sits in there for a long time, likely. It's not a big surprise that it's going to be a little funky, but no one's drinking from that. So anyway.
And I would like to make one clarification. Joe mentioned that there was 1 washing sink in a classroom. And it's not a classroom with kids in it. It's actually in the AIS classroom. So it's not a regular classroom where kids are in it all day long. It was occasionally in and out of that classroom.
So that's the other. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, that's good news, obviously. I just wonder if it makes any sense to look into what the cost for repairing the ones, the outside ones. Just some of our parents may be concerned, just because you hear lead and, they're used for field day and they're younger kids. Just, I don't know what the cost would be, but just might make sense to look into that if it's not.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely look into it. And that's part of, you'll see in the notice that goes home tomorrow that, one of the requirements is to put together a remediation plan. So, that's what Sheldon will do. We don't have to do it in a day. I mean, he's got, I think, he has 30 days to put together a remediation plan. And of course, by then, nobody will be outside anyway. So, yeah, he'll look at that.
And after that fact, we found out you don't even have to test the hose bibs. But we did, and they're in the results, so we have to include them.
Yeah.
But we weren't required to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean.
But we did it.
You just think of those hoses and they use them for field day and water and little it's just.
Yep.
I wouldn't want it for the rubber taste of the hose. Yeah, I don't know.
Does anyone else have any other? Laura?
I just wanted to, you had mentioned in your note to us about the sexual harassment training, and the 13th is fine for me, or any of those days.
Of December, that looks like the best chance, but you'd have to tell me if you're planning on being available, because we'd rather do it once and not have to bring Marvin back. So anybody thinks they might not be here on the 13th, I understand things come up, but
Good.
all right. So I'll line Marvin up for The 13th, we'll probably start at 6 PM. We'll bring dinner in, and it usually takes him about an hour or so to get through that, and then we'll be down here for our, for our meeting at 7:30 then. Well, no, yes, that'll be okay. It's the 22nd, that would be problematic because we're having that presentation at 7, so. Okay, great. I will remind you when we get closer.
I just have one other item of other, which is the Dutchess County School Boards Association. Next meeting is on December 1st at 7 PM at BOCES. And they are going to have a guest speaker, Dr. Rick Timms, who is I guess he's an expert on school finance.
Well, he's the guy that was at the breakfast that you weren't able to go to because you were on the delegate floor.
So anyway, they're looking for a good turnout for that, so if you're available, get it available on your
Rick?
calendar.
I know the name, I've heard him before.
They're looking for, and there will be information going out about it, but I just wanted to make you aware of it so you can put it on your calendar. Okay. Any other? All right, so we'll move on to action items. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the donation of $500 in TOPS gift cards to the Rhinebeck Central School District from TOPS Friendly Markets?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We'd like to thank TOPS for their generous donation. All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the list of additional emergency conditional substitute teachers and substitute non-instructional staff for the 2016-17 school year?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve additional coaches advisors for the 2016-17 school year in accordance with the 2016-17 RTA salary schedule? Boys basketball, JV, Michael Ross, $3,136. Varsity assistant, David Jutton, volunteer. William Hoynes, volunteer.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Lisa?
Just want to recognize how fortunate we are to have people both on the staff and in the community willing to volunteer to help.
Okay, all those in favor? It's all except Burns. Abstention, Burns. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to grant tenure to David Jutton in the tenure area of physical education effective November 13th, 2016, and may be revoked by the Board of Education up until that time.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. I have a motion to approve the 2016-17 superintendent's administrative goals.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
We haven't received those yet, have we?
I thought I emailed them to everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
I
get it.
didn't see them either.
Is it not here?
Can we table this until
You do what you'd like.
motion
Is there
to
a
table
motion to table?
for further review?
Is there a second?
I looked for them too. I didn't see them.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling the motion?
Sorry.
Do you not have them at your places here?
No,
No.
no.
Oh, no, of course you don't. Of course
I
you
don't have
don't.
them anywhere, I don't think.
Well, anyway, you've tabled them, but let me pass them around. I mean, they are confidential, so I tend not to let them float around.
Don't pass them around since we're not dealing with them tonight.
Okay,
Just let's get them so that we can discuss. them
Okay.
at the next meeting.
sure.
And may I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the donation of $8,000 from the Rhinebeck PTSO to continue with support of the school district's arts and education program?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Of course, we'd like to thank the PTSO for their generous contributions to the arts and ed program. All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. We have executive session.
I'll take 2 minutes of your time if that's the pleasure of the board.
Motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussion of negotiations with one of our bargaining units.
That's
So
what the one
moved.
reason.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. Moving into executive session.
Okay.